Hey guys, today we are looking at what's my rule. So we're going to use something called a function machine that looks like this. An important word that we're going to need to know is the word input. You can see I have the two letters IN underlined on input, so that is the in. That is what we are putting into our machine, so that is going to be this column right here. We also have the word output. So you can see I have underlined the OUT for out. That is what comes out of the machine. The machine puts out a value after we put something into it. So something goes in, the machine does something to it, something comes out, and we need to figure out what is happening, and that's going to be called our rule. So what is the machine doing? So we're going to look at 4 different types of this. So the first type is when we know what the rule is and we know all of the inputs. So let's look at an example. Let's say that our rule is to subtract 15. And our inputs, let's say, are 30, 65, 90, and 110. So what happens is we put in 30, the machine subtracts 15 from it. So think right now in your brain, 30 minus 15, and the machine would kick out a 15 for us. 30 minus 15 is 15. We look at 65. Same thing. 65 goes in, the machine subtracts 15, we would hopefully end up with a 50. We have 90 and 110 left. I want you to pause your video, see if you can come up with those values now. So go ahead and pause. 90 and 110. All right, hopefully you've had a second to figure that out. We put 90 in and subtract 15. So 90 minus 15, we should end up with a 75. And 110 minus 15, we should end up with a 95. Okay, let's look at type 2. In the second type, we are going to know the rule, and we're going to know all of the outputs. So we're going to kind of have to move backwards to this one. So let's pretend that our rule is add 100. And if you would rather write the rule as plus 100, I'm fine with that too. I'm not too picky about that. But let's say that we know some outputs. Let's say we have 350, we have 120, let's go with 665 and 231. So now we kind of have to work backwards. We know what the machine gave us. We don't know what we put into it to begin with, though. So if they gave us 350, it already added 100 to it, so we almost have to go backwards 100. So we should end up at 250. At 120, you need to think, what did we already have that when we add 100, we end up at 120? Hopefully you come up with the answer of 20. So now you have 665 and 231. I'm going to pause the video. I want you to see if you can come up with those values now. Okay? All right, let's take a look at it. When we have 665, what number did we have when we add 100 to it? We get 665. Well, we just bring that hundreds place down by 1. We should have 565. 231, what did we have before? It should have been 131. Hopefully that's what you got. Let's look at type number 3. So, in type number 3, we are going to know inputs and outputs, and we need to figure out what the rule is. So let's say that our machine looked like this. We put in a 7, and it gives us a 49. We put in a 2, it gives us a 14. Some of you are already starting to think what it could be. You usually need at least 3 values in each of these to figure out what it is to know for sure. So we need kind of 3 pairs to kind of know for sure that that's actually what's happening. So let's say if I put in a 9, get a 63. Some of you are starting to catch on. And let's say I put in a 600. I got a 4,200. Now, one thing that I want to point out in this type, if from the input to the output it is getting bigger, there's a good chance that that's going to be either addition or it's going to be multiplication. If from the input to the output it gets smaller, it's probably going to be subtraction or division. So in these, you can see it's getting bigger. I like to go to the smallest one, just easier in my brain to work with. So when I look at a 2, to get to a 14, I know that I'm either adding 12 or I'm multiplying by 7. So I can look at some of my other values. We'll get 7 to 49. Well, the rule has to be the same for all of them, so I'm either adding 12 or times 7. 7 plus 12 is not 49, so it must be the times 7. So I know that my rule is going to be times 7, like that. Okay, let's look at another example like that where you need to figure out what the rule is. Let's say that when we put in a 5, we get a 10. So you should already be thinking, what could possibly happen? Is it getting bigger? Is it getting smaller? When I put in a 20, I get a 25. When I put in a 7, I get a 12. When I put in a 511, I get a 516 back. So I want you to pause the video, see if you can come up with what that rule is right now. Alright, let's take a look. First thing you should look at, are our values getting bigger or are they getting smaller? 5 to 10, bigger. 20 to 25, it's getting bigger. So I know it's either going to be addition or it's going to be multiplication. So I'm going to look at my smallest one. From 5 to 10, I know I'm either adding 5, so plus 5, or I'm multiplying times 2. So when I'm just going to look at the 7 then. So 7, am I adding 5 to get to 12 or am I multiplying times 2 to get to 12? Well, I'm adding 5, so I'm going to say that my rule is a plus 5. Like that. Hopefully that's what you got as well. We have one more type to look at. In the fourth type of a function machine, you are going to kind of get a mix of everything. So a lot of times they don't give you the rule. You got to figure out the rule just from kind of a mixture of something. So let's look at an example. Let's say we have a 54 and we get a 9. Then the other pieces of information they give us. Let's say we have a 42 here. We have a 24 and a 4. And we have a 100 here. And we don't know what the rule is. So we're going to have to try to kind of figure this out. So we look at the information that we do know. We can look at 54 and 9, or we can look at 24 and 4. I'm going to look at 24 and 4. That just seems like a better one to look at in my mind. If you like this one better, look at that one first. 24 to 4, it's getting smaller. So I know it's either going to be subtraction or it's going to be division. So I need to think, what could those be? So you go from 24 to 4 with subtraction, that would be a minus 20. I like to just write my options off on the side over here. If I was dividing, I know 4 times 6 is 24, so 24 divided by 6 would be 4. So it could be a divided by 6. Then I can look at my other one, 54 to 9. I'm either subtracting 20 or dividing by 6. Well, I know it's not subtracting 20, so my rule must be a divide by 6. So if I'm dividing by 6, I can come to this one. 42, that's going in. We divide by 6. We should end up with a 7 on this side. Then I want you to try this one out for yourself. What would we put in that when divided by 6 comes out as a 100? So go ahead and pause and try that now. Alright, let's take a look at it. When I put a number in, divided by 6 and get 100, you can kind of work backwards from there. So I'm going to go 100. I'm going to flip the rule a little bit. I'm going to say, instead of divide by 6, I'm going to say times 6 and work backwards. So 100 times 6 is going to give me 600 is what would go right there. It's going to become increasingly important that we know our multiplication facts and our division facts, so that extra math is going to become increasingly important as we go. Practice that every day. I want you to write down right now, in terms of a what's my rule function machine here. How are you feeling? Beginning, developing, or secure? So you're ready to come in and write that down so we can get started right away on our next lesson. So write that down now. Remember that for when you come in the morning.